So how to transition? Well, I made it up. I started talking to myself. And every day I take a walk. Every day I drive in my car. And I talk to myself about what I see. The trees, the road, the cars, the people. And the first time I did it was horrible because I couldn't find any word.
Yep.
But what happened is there was no embarrassment. There wasn't anybody staring at me saying that. The experience has been fun because the words, when I find them, come out of the dark corners of my mind. And I'm thinking, where did I get that word? Where did that come from?
Hi, Joe.
Hello, Alvaro.
And welcome to the podcast. First of all, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's an honor. Thank you.
And I think you're gonna be the perfect guest or that timely guest because, as you know, I've been talking a lot recently about how to make the transition between input and output, because I think that's a bit of a missing piece when it comes to understanding the language acquisition process. Because again, I believe in comprehensible input the most. I think it's absolutely key. You can't learn a language without it. But I feel like we, the language community in general, should talk more about how to make that transition, because I've noticed that myself, but I see it in a lot of people. Like, that might be the most frustrating part. You know, when you've been listening to the language for quite a while, you understand a lot, and you want to start communicating, but you're not there yet, or it takes a lot of effort and things like that. And since you're in that specific moment when it comes to Spanish, I think it's going to be a great experience for everyone.
Sounds like a good plan. You know, I am here indirectly because of the pandemic. Because during the pandemic, we had some time on our hands because the things that we did couldn't be done. We were shut in. And so I started reading a lot. And I was reading literature in English, but I had read a lot. And what that experience taught me is how to reallocate my time from things that were habits that didn't serve well to a habit of reading a lot that served extremely well. The other thing I did was put an emphasis on audio input of that literature so that I could repurpose my car. Because if I'm driving someplace listening to the radio, that's probably going to be wasted time, maybe lightly entertaining, but not fulfilling. So I read Moby Dick and, Anna Karenina and War and Peace, a lot of that in the car. Now that experience of how to reallocate my time was useful because in February of 23, I was on YouTube and I put a YouTube search in for comprehensible input. I had heard that term of art, but I wasn't really clear on what it was all about. And I found Steve Kaufman, Stephen Krashen, and then pretty soon I found Pablo Roman. So starting in February of 23, I did 3 to 4 hours a day, every day, of input. And the language grew. But I was following the recommendations. I wasn't speaking. I live in California. There are a lot of Spanish speakers here, but my day-to-day didn't put me in a situation where I needed to speak in order to conduct business or take care of my own needs. I could do that silent period that has been recommended by Marvin Brown and others to get the sounds in my head. So now I've got my 2,000 hours. And the question is exactly what you just said. How do you transition into talking?
Right.
Not so easy. So the guidance I have on that is from Pablo, and he said you need hundreds of hours of practice in speaking. And admittedly, all of these comprehensible input knowledge sources that I was working from were really focusing on input. And it was almost like output didn't exist. So how to transition? Well, I made it up. I started talking to myself. And every day I take a walk. Every day I drive in my car and I talk to myself about what I see. The trees, the road, the cars, the people. And the first time I did it, it was horrible because I couldn't find any word.
Yep.
But what happened is there was no embarrassment. There wasn't anybody staring at me saying, there you go. And so in the absence of embarrassment, I just kept going. And I still do it every day, and it's getting easier. Now, what I'm not doing is recording myself, so I can't tell you if I'm becoming more eloquent. Maybe I still sound like a 4-year-old. I don't know.
Right.
But the experience has been fun because the words, when I find them, come out of the dark corners of my mind. And I'm thinking, where did I get that word? Where did that come from? And it was just hidden someplace in a little cubbyhole, and out it would come. My plan is to continue doing this because I have no time limit. I'm not living in a Spanish-speaking country. I don't have a job that requires this. And so I can take that same relaxed approach. Although you might quibble saying, well, wait a minute, if you're doing 4 hours a day, how's that relaxed? But I can take that same no pressure approach that I did with the input and not stress myself out. I think, how many times have you heard somebody tell you that if you're stressing over a language, it isn't going to work as well. It's not going to serve you as well. Don't stress. Take it easy.
Right. Yeah, you did 4 hours a day because you wanted to, not because you wanted to speed up the process in order to get a job, for example. Right?
No, that's exactly right. I had a professor years ago who was a funny guy, and he's a very Socratic guy, and he said, people basically do what they want to do. And at the time, I wasn't very smart, I guess, and I listened to him, I thought, wow, what a waste of time telling me that. And about 20 years later, I went, oh my God. In other words, you can't boss people around because they're going to basically do what they want to do, right? So I made a video about that. But yeah, I wanted to get the input, and that's how I did it. Now I want the output, but I'm not stressing over it. Just doing it a little bit every day. Woke up. Gotta do it. Now, what about the next plan? I want to do italki. But I think I've got some work to do before I get to that. And
sorry to interrupt, but do you mean a tutor or change
not
okay?
Well, no. So under tandem, a language exchange, I would be talking to someone in English. They would be speaking to me in Spanish. That kind of language exchange I can do today. Now, the reason I don't do that is because there is so much content in Spanish. And so I haven't found it's necessary to jockey my schedule and coordinate times. And if I was learning Swahili or Mandarin, I'm sure I would be doing a great deal of language exchange. But no, I said Italki, the plan would be to have a budget, and pay a native speaker to speak with me everything in Spanish, and not necessarily ask for a lot of didactic corrections as much as just have a good conversation with somebody. But I don't think I'm quite ready.
Okay.
And I don't know. I'm learning this as I go, but I think there's probably a limit to talking to yourself.
Right. Yeah, I see it. I'm doing that myself now with German. I'll talk about my example in a moment. But yeah, I look at them as a stepping stone, because what you're describing is exactly what I wanted to talk about, meaning the transition between yes input, relax, and you're in your couch at home, to real life communication. And that's a huge gap, right? When it comes to, the ability to communicate, the stress you're going to be under. And so that's why activities like the ones you just mentioned, like talking to yourself, yeah, there might be a limit to it. It's not going to get you to fluent communication alone, but it might help you bridge the gap between this input and real life output, right? Which is stressful for most people, including myself, of course. But not just stressful, but you might actually not be ready to do that right away.
I think you're right. I'm not ready to have a satisfying conversation with a native speaker. It would be infantile.
Yep.
But I see your term of art, that it's a gap, is brilliant. We have, shall we say, 3 gaps in learning a language. The first one is, how do you get a grip on a language that you don't know anything? Mm-hmm. And, the teachers, the content creators they're developing methodology for that with stick figure drawings and repeating and, the TPR approach, where they hold up things and gestures. And so the way people start, the content creators are closing that gap down a bit. And then the next gap is that time where impatience is functioning, and you're at an intermediate level, and you think, wow, I've kind of hit a plateau, which I think is a myth. I think it's just an opinion people develop because it's just a learning process, and it doesn't stop. But that middle ground, and that's the gap that I'm trying to help people with. I recognize that a lot of people studied English in school the way I studied German in school, and now as adults, they can't understand native content, and they can't speak. So that intermediate time that intermediate stage is a great place for channels like mine to function, to bring people up to the next challenge, which is the gap you're focused on here, which is the transition to output.
Right.
But if we've been conscious of making this an enjoyable, positive experience, stressing, why would we all of a sudden say, okay, now it's time to pile a lot of stress on ourselves and immediately do output and turn this into a miserable, hateful experience?
Right.
No, I'm not going to do it. So I'm lucky. I don't have a job that requires me to speak. I don't have to go. And actually, if I went to a grocery store and needed to buy good, if I needed to be polite to somebody on public transit, I'm good. I was in a grocery store not too long ago, and a fellow, an expat from Mexico, was at the meat counter, and he was talking to the person serving at the meat counter, and he was talking to him in Spanish. And the guy behind the counter was not having it. He just didn't figure out what this guy was doing.
Uh-huh.
And so I turned to him and I said, "Puedo ayudar?" And he sparkled, and he told me he wanted 1.5 pounds of the burger. But he told it to me in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And I told the guy at the counter he got what he wanted, and it was really weird. Here I am, this Spanish speaker wannabe, and I'm functioning as a translator in a grocery store. It was very fun. It doesn't mean I'm a great linguist, but it's part of that experience of functioning. It was great entertainment. It's nice. It's nice to help another human being. It's also nice to play tricks in languages. You've probably experienced something like this where you are in a situation and somebody's saying something they don't expect you understand, and then you surprise them. The internet is covered with videos on that. I was on a dive trip in the Caribbean, and there were 2 young women, good divers, nice people. They were diving with us, but they were Germans, and they were speaking with each other in German. And they knew we didn't speak any German. They knew they were safe. They were very gossipy. And they didn't understand for a moment that I understood pretty much everything they said. They were a little naughty. And we were saying goodbye, and I said goodbye in German. They said, "You understood us?" I said, "Yeah."
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny.
But, it's not necessarily very mature of me, but it's a human experience.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it happens to me at times here because I live in Krakow, which is a pretty international city, like mainly European languages, but you get to listen to Spanish, Italian, French, German all the time. So yeah, it happens to me all the time. Like I understand what people are talking about. And it's funny with German because I've talked about this recently, that I'm sure there's a name for it, that there's an effect that, because I'm learning German now, before I started, I thought there was no German people here, right? But now that I understand the language, like there's German people everywhere. Because before I got started, it was just noise to me. So my brain wasn't paying attention to them. But now it is. They're like, whoa, where did all these German people come from? Huh?
Yeah, it's like the hunter who goes out in the jungle and comes back and says, "I didn't see any tigers." And the wiser, more experienced person said, "They saw you."
Exactly. Yeah. But
yeah, all those German people were there.
Of course. Yeah, my brain wasn't paying attention. Well, it was just noise to my ears, so that's why. But
probably the funniest dumb thing like that I ever did, I spent 6 weeks in Turkey.
Okay.
And so I learned some polite phrases, travelers stuff. Right, left, up, down, yes, no, please, thank you. And I love the word in Turkish for thank you, for thank you, which is teşekkür ederim. Mm-hmm. And it's just a beautiful word. So I was near the Blue Mosque in the Hagia Sophia and I was walking with some friends, English speakers from the U.S. and Canada, and we were just walking around looking for a place to eat. And the rug merchants would jump on you, and they would talk to you in various languages, German, French, English, and they were amazing. But they wanted you to go drink tea and buy rugs. And this guy was grabbing onto us and really trying to monopolize our walk. And I turned to him And I just said, offend him, zanetmiorum desekularis. And that was, my lord, sir, I don't think so, but thanks. And the response was he burst into laughter. He burst into laughter because he could not expect that some obvious American tourist was going to talk to him in Turkish. But I credit myself for being a parrot because I don't speak Turkish.
Right. You just knew a couple of words, but
A clever parrot.
Clever parrot. Nice.
But anyway.
No, I really like what you're saying about patience, because I'm talking to my personal experience now. I'm extremely patient when it comes to the input part, like I said. But because I know it takes time, so I'm perfectly fine. But I think the patience the impatience when it comes to the output might come from the fact that. So I'll talk about my example with German, right? So I believe I've got like 1,300 hours under my belt now. And I can understand so much. I mean, like native podcasts even. And I was recently in Germany in June in Berlin. And I understood everything. I mean, not everything, but I understood most of what people were saying. I tried to communicate a couple of times and I could, but I felt like if the conversation was to continue, I would have struggled to go deeper, right? So that's where I'm at. But I think the impatience problem at this point comes from, like I said, I can understand so much that I'd love to be able to actually communicate. Because when you're starting out with the language, you don't know anything. So like you're getting input. So anything is just wonderful to you, right? You're just getting exposed to a new language. So any progress is amazing. But now that I understand pretty much everything, that's where the impatience kicks in. So I think that's my case and a lot of people's case. I'd say that's the difference between being patient at the beginning when you just listen to the language versus now that I can understand so much that even though I intellectually understand that it takes time to get there, I don't know if subconsciously or at some, I don't know, subconscious level, like I said, I want to speed up the process, because I feel like I can understand real people already.
The world needs impatient people because we get things done. I was born a crying child. I wanted more. I was impatient on day one. So I've never had any experience where I was laid back and chill and, relaxed. I've always been striving and trying to claw my way into things. But you can torture yourself. And, that's why I like the idea that if I have 2,000 hours of input, I should strive to, in a very relaxed way, acquire 200 hours or 300 hours. These are not absolute numbers. These are ballpark numbers. But on the order of 10% of my input, I would like as output. And then along the way, see how that worked out.
Yep.
My experience learning Spanish is a science experiment. So people looking at the video, they can see that what hair I have is a little on the gray side. I am not a teenager. I'm not a 30-year-old. And so conventional wisdom, I couldn't possibly learn a language to fluency. That's absurd. That ship has already sailed. I'm too old. And so that's my null hypothesis. The null hypothesis is I'm too old to learn language. And so now I'm striving to learn language. It's been super fun. It's a game. I'm playing a game. And so the input is done. Yeah. I think this whole thing about learning Spanish for me is a game. I'm just playing the game. I want to know how it works, and I want to beat the null hypothesis. I'm going to prove to myself, I don't need to prove it to anybody else, prove to myself that I'm not too old and not too simple-minded to learn a language, and then play the game. So the content is in the bag. I've got it. Now, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to have more content every day. Before I started with you this morning, I had an hour of content over coffee. But then the output is the next phase of the game. But I'm not going to turn it into a misery. I want to play the game. I'll talk to myself, and then I'll look for opportunities to talk to other people. And this has been a big effort over a period of a couple of years. So I should be prepared to pay someone. I don't want them to correct my grammar. I want them to be an attentive listener who will draw more language out of me by asking probative questions.
Yep.
If I go to a grocery store and I address a Spanish speaker in Spanish, and then I struggle and fumble and waste their time, I have to remember they're not my teacher. They're a citizen, and they have no duty.
Right.
They've got a duty to be civil, but they don't have a duty to teach me Spanish. If, on the other hand, I've played the game, I've got a lot of input, and I've been talking to myself a lot and built the ability to put sentences together and express thoughts pretty well, I should be willing to pay a teacher to participate because they're paid to participate. And I think that's my plan. I can tell you my plan is simple. I'm going to continue for a number of months talking to myself every day. And then I'm going to go on italki, and I'm going to sign up, and I'm going to get a tutor, maybe more than one over time, find somebody that I enjoy talking to, and pay them for their time so that I'm not taking unreasonable advantage of somebody.
Yep. Sounds like a good plan.
Well, we can revisit this, 6 months or a year from now.
Right.
And one of the things is I'll tell the truth. I don't want to be a phony. That's like the worst thing in my world is somebody who's a fake or a phony.
Yep.
No, I want to be straight up honest. So I can report back to you how this plan worked, and I'm willing to do it.
Absolutely. I'll be more than happy to hear from you. Yeah. Yeah, because I'm doing that with German now. And first of all, I gotta say, like talking to myself. First of all, I gotta say that it's more enjoyable than I thought it would be. First of all, because just the joy of realizing that you can do it, that you can talk, just like you said, as you're driving, what you're looking at, or the podcast you just listened to. So talk about what you just listened to, or things that you like, or what you did yesterday, whatever it is. It's actually fun, and I was thinking that you even get to be silly about it, meaning the accent and so on, because no one's listening. Back to what you said. That's
Jawohl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, jawohl, exactly.
Jawohl. You can play games with the language, and there's nobody there to judge you. There's no reason to be embarrassed.
It's fun. It's fun, and honestly as well, like pretty quickly, I realized that it helps with pronunciation because I've been listening to German for quite a while, like 1,300 hours, like I said. So in my head, it's already been a while that I've been building sentences and imagining conversations in my head. But the moment you actually start speaking, wow, is that, that's shocking, because in your head, everything sounds wonderful. Like, oh, I get it. But then you actually use it, and it's like, wow. I didn't think it was so hard to pronounce it, or things like that.
Yeah, those phonemes, they take a little while to wrap your mouth around them, but they do come. If you look online for English speakers, there are a lot of people teaching us or trying to teach us how to roll our R's, trying to learn Spanish. And they've got models and sketches and where you put your tongue and practice things. And I didn't do any of that. I did nothing. So one of my input sources was Espanol Juan Fernandez, who has a podcast, and he's a fellow originally from Granada, and he has a lot of input. So I'm listening to this guy, and he was talking about a word and an expression and a circumstance, and he said the word that was a little bit of a jargon term for disgust, but not quite, and it was repelús. And I'm in traffic, and I'm listening to him, and I just said the word repelús. And I realized I had rolled an R. Now, you, as a native speaker, might say, yeah, you did it lousy, though. But
pretty good, though.
Not too bad. And then later, somebody said guitarra. And I thought, wow, for an American saying that word, that is amazing. And I don't want to lavish praise on myself as much as marvel at how the input can allow your brain. Our brain is designed to do this job.
Yep.
We evolved to acquire languages, and it was only economic features and organized educational behavior that made it difficult for adults to learn languages.
Right.
You live in Europe. People know multiple languages, and you probably don't have anybody taking you aside say, Alvaro, I just can't seem to learn these languages. No, it's normal.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say that it depends on the country and where in the country, because I'm from a small town in Spain, so knowing multiple languages is not as common.
No.
But, English, most people can sort of navigate the English language in a way, right? But, yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. Something about European languages.
But I think we're, as a species, designed to acquire languages.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a little disingenuous to say, well, I just can't learn a language. I'm not good with languages.
Mm-hmm.
But no, your DNA is good with languages. You are a human being.
Right.
There are no populations of humans who can't learn to speak their first language.
Yep.
They don't exist.
Yes, I think it's what you said, that the education system makes you believe that you're not good at language. Because, again, you're trying to learn a language in a complete different artificial way, which is obviously not going to work. But when you see other people that actually can speak other languages, you think you're the problem, right?
Right. So obviously,
if you look at their cases, they probably did something different. Or besides the classes that weren't helping you or them either, they were listening to podcasts, they were watching YouTube videos, whatever it was. So that's the part that was helping them, but you didn't see it.
Or they were dating a native speaker,
for example. That works, yeah.
Yeah, I came up with a rather grotesque simile to what we do with language learning in schools, and that is you go to a pet store and you want to buy a pet, and they show you pets that have been disassembled, and they show you the heart and the lungs and the bones and let you pick it out. Say, no, I don't want dog bones and dog fur. I want a dog. I want the whole thing. And I don't want to study, the inner workings of a dog. I don't need the structural knowledge of a dog. I just want a sweet little puppy with a cold nose.
Correct. And I'm thinking that even then, when you buy the different pieces of the dog, the different organs and so on, then you're forced to build it in real time as you're speaking to the other person. You know what I mean? It's not like you have time at home to assemble it like an IKEA piece of furniture, right? On top of that, you're forced to, build the dog with the pressure of, yeah.
Well, when you build the dog that way, what do you wind up with? A dead dog.
Yeah.
If we really carry it to its grotesque end, if you assemble parts of a dog, you wind up with a dog that's dead.
Right.
Because you can't animate it. And what we're doing by this natural method of learning language is we're building a live dog.
Correct. Yeah, good one. I like it.
It's a little grotesque. I have not, pardon me, I have not made that video. It's a little grotesque.
Right, because talking about your channel, you started your English channel like a couple of months ago, right?
Well,
and you're like mainly what you're doing is creating stories or talking about life in English, right? Or please tell us about it.
So the channel Input English, I got my coffee cup, Input English.
Nice.
That's also my domain name. I have inputenglish.com, and that's currently forwarded to my YouTube channel. So you don't get a separate pay me kind of a thing. No, it's forwarded to the channel. Input English grew out of passion created by Pablo Roman and Dreaming Spanish, because Pablo, when he was talking to us, his followers and listeners, said, we need more content in all the languages. So if you speak a language other than Spanish, why don't you start making content? And I thought, me? And then I thought, oh man, this will be fun because it's a game. So I had to learn a lot because my background, I'm not a videographer. I don't know anything about lighting. I'm okay with computers, but I had to learn a lot. Editing software, oh my God. So through this year until, this summer, I was learning. And then August 7th, I published 41 videos. Boom. And a lot of them were lousy. I got it. It was the craft. I was learning. But since then, I put out one video a day. And the channel's taking off. And my goal is not making a lot of money. No, my goal is to make the videos that I would want in English if I was learning English. My working assumption, if I am in this channel, I studied English in school. I learned some words. I learned some grammar. I learned some phrases, but that's, years ago. And now I'm not comfortable listening to native content, and I'm not comfortable saying stuff. And I want English. I enjoy it. English is everywhere. It's like cockroaches. It's everywhere. But it's not everywhere at a level that people find it easy to use. So I'm creating the videos that I would want if I was learning English, at the A2 level.
Yeah.
Knowing a few words, but not being comfortable.
Right.
And I'm not doing super beginner videos. You won't see me drawing a lot of stick figures and, talking about coffee cup and hair and nose. There's a lot available of super beginner. You could argue you always need more, But I'm trying to serve the advanced beginner, intermediate. I can only make so much content.
Yeah, you're a human being, right?
Yeah. I mean, if I make a video a day, that means every 4 or 5 days I make an hour's worth of content.
Mm-hmm.
And so people need hundreds and hundreds of hours of content to see a difference. For me, an hour of content made no difference. I couldn't tell. But 300 hours of content, I could really tell a difference.
Yeah.
So my goal is to make 300 hours of content for people, and it's going to take me a while to do that.
Whatever it takes, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm taking it seriously. I get up in the morning and get the chores done and then record a video. And I'm now stacked several days in advance. So if I stopped making videos, they would still upload for the next several days.
Right. Yeah, but it's true that English is a bit different because we've all been in contact with it beforehand. So it's hard to find someone who's starting from scratch, right? So that's why you don't need as many, like you said, if there's a comprehensible input Turkish channel, for example, you might need to start from scratch, like sticky figures, like you said, and pointing at things. And with English, not necessary for the most part, I guess, because it's already somewhat comprehensible, right? For most people, so what you're doing, you're just telling stories or talking about life.
Right.
Adjusting the way you communicate a little bit so it's more comprehensible, right?
Right. Well, so yesterday I filmed a video and I edited it and then I watched it. And I looked at it and I said, well, it's not good enough. Because I must have started out with a bunch of coffee because I was talking way too fast.
Good.
Now, YouTube is super useful because you can hit the controls and dial it back. But I didn't want to impose on my viewers. So after we finish here, I'm going to go back out to the park and make that video over. But it's going to be a little slower, a little more relaxed, and it's going to be better. I don't publish every video I film. We are responsible for our quality.
Good point. Yeah. It takes time to perfect the skill, right? Because you're using your native language, so naturally you speed up, right?
Yeah, if I get enthusiastic about a topic, I'm going to go a mile a minute. I'm going to go fast. No, and I got to be patient. Yeah. This is a great missed opportunity. We had a fellow visiting us from Argentina at the university when I was university faculty. And he was here from Argentina, and he was telling me at the university that he didn't like the room he had rented. He thought that the people were treating him terribly, and he just hated it. And I said, well, we have a guest room. Why don't you move into the guest room and I'll drive you to work every day. It'll be fine. We're in the same department. And so he lived with us 2 different times for weeks and weeks. I didn't talk to him, and I didn't have him speak Spanish to me. This was decades ago.
Oh, really?
But this experience of having him as an English learner, I learned to speak over a period of months. I learned to speak clearly, precisely, and patiently.
Yep.
And that's how I make the videos.
Yeah. It takes more mental effort on your part, but that's what the other person needs. Because I teach Spanish this way. Like besides the YouTube videos, I'm a Spanish teacher, so I'm used to doing this. And after an hour, after a class, wow, my brain is does mental workout. You're just thinking about what you're going to say. Do I need to slow down or not? If I use this word, are they going to understand, or should I use this other one? Should I use an image to help them understand? Point at it. My goodness. It's like your brain's working all the time during that hour. Plus, you're speaking most of the time because they need the input first, right? So it is definitely talented.
Yeah,
But that's what they need. That's what they need.
a conscientious educator is tired all the time.
Yep. Yep. Okay. So I'll leave the link to your channel or anything that you want me to link to. But like you said, your website is linking to your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Your YouTube channel would do it, right?
Yeah, it's Input English. InputEnglish.com is my YouTube channel, Input English. And, all are welcome. When people leave me messages, they're just so positive. I've not been trolled or had any complaints or vicious disagreements. I had one fellow saying, well, there may be some room for some disagreement here. This is the way I take it. And he had a point. So I celebrated it. I said, yeah, that's another way to look at that. Agreed. And we remain friends.
Cool. Yeah, that's even, I'd say that's even necessary. The problem is most people, I know like that person, right? That when you disagree with someone, we go to the extreme right away. So,
right.
There's friction.
Right.
We're not hearing the point because it hits our ego right away, right?
Yeah. Well, I try not to draw a sword. No, it's been very positive. And, we have to accept each other. And the other vibe I'm really striving for is I'm not a guru. I'm not a super expert. I'm just an honest guy trying to do a good job. And the reason I'm making this content is not because I've got a whole bunch of stuff to beat into people. No, I'm just trying to make a useful resource because other people did that for me.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes you feel better about yourself too, which is priceless, to be honest.
Yeah. So a recent YouTube video said being on YouTube is an emotional roller coaster. And I heard him and thought, why are you telling me that? And then I thought about it, and it literally is, because you look at your views and they're down, or you look at their views and they're up, or you look at the comments and there are a lot of them. And so it's tempting to tag your mood, your attitude, to the information that YouTube is providing you. And, oh man, I just have to relax and just let it be because I can't change it. You just keep putting out good content. And I haven't had anybody say, your videos stink. I don't understand why you're wasting your time, and I'll never be on this channel again.
Right.
That never happened.
Good. Yeah, but it's true because you depend on outside affirmation all the time, so it can be tricky. Yeah. But like I said, you feel better about yourself, and because, like, for example, recently the reason I started talking about output more recently is because, so I used to believe input was the only thing you needed, and like I said, I still believe it's the most important thing. But I've sort of changed my mind about output, to be honest. So I started talking about it because that's my truth. That's what I feel. So I wanted to talk about it. And I changed my mind because 2 or 3 years ago, I created content around the idea that you don't need output.
Right.
Input is enough, right? And I'm starting to realize that I think I was wrong. So, I'm talking about it that way because that's what I feel. And it makes me feel better about myself too. Because I'm being honest with, to everyone. And
I think you're absolutely right. I was led to believe, based on what I had listened to and read on comprehensive input, is that was the end all and do all, and that's it.
Yeah.
We're done. Nothing else to be said. And then just like you, it's like, how come I can't talk? How come I can't find words? I know the words, but they're hard to find. They're in there. And now we're in this process of converting over. I think if time was unlimited, if we were doing this over a time scale that was unlimited, you might approach the point that you don't need to worry about output, that it just happens automatically. But we are adults. We are adults. We all have a huge vocabulary. We have a huge body of knowledge and experiences that we want to share with other people. We want to tell stories. And so I think that's where we get this sense of urgency to go from input to output. And I'm okay with that, as long as I can figure out a hypothesis for how to do it without stressing myself out, without failing. And so that's how I came up with my game, which is talk to yourself, the walk and talk, the drive and talk. And then later I'm willing to pay, I'm going to budget to pay an instructor so that I'm not taking advantage of somebody at the grocery store, forcing them to listen to me struggle.
Yeah, you can always, the language exchange thing that you mentioned before, you can always find someone to do half an hour and half an hour, in case you don't want to find a tutor. I mean, if this.
And that might be, I hadn't thought of that. But I think you're exactly right. Because let's think about it. There are people in reciprocal situations.
Yeah.
Somebody who knows a lot of English, who's trying to start talking. They're in that special unstable time where they're trying to get output. I like it. You just gave me the most powerful advice I'm probably going to get all week. I thank you, because now I have a plan.
My pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to walk and talk, drive and talk, and going forward, get on Tandem, do some language exchange, try to find somebody I'm comfortable with, and then we'll do that split time half hour. Oh, that would be brilliant.
Yeah, I feel like when just starting this process of outputting, because again, the other person's feeling the same things you're feeling on the other language. So I feel like empathy is easier in that situation.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I don't want somebody to correct me. I want somebody to engage in a mature conversation. And, there are subtle ways to correct people by restating it in a different way that's a little more artful. And you don't have to grab somebody by the throat and say, you just made a horrible mistake. Let me teach you how to say that correctly. No, you can just rephrase what they said in a different, more artful way, and then that's input.
Yep.
Perfect. No corrections.
Like take a mental note and use that structure more often yourself. That's what I do as a teacher, of course, but that's like, a 201 version, but cool. So this has been fun. And
it's been my pleasure.
Any final message for language learners out there?
Don't quit. Don't quit. That's the way you fail. I would say turn it into a game. Find the game, because people basically do what they want to do, and people love games. And so if learning a language is a drudgery, a chore, a miserable, boring thing, you're not going to do it. But if you can find the game, find the entertainment value, where it adds something to your life, to where you get up in the morning and you say, oh, goody, I get to get some input, or I get to talk to so-and-so in Argentina. Wow. So I would say, find the game.
Good one. Good one. Okay, so yeah, like I said, I'll leave links towards your YouTube channel, and it's been a pleasure. Like I said, real fun conversation. Yeah, and yeah, wish you all the best with your Spanish journey, and we'll be in touch like a few months from now. See how you're doing with your.
Wow. Wouldn't it be fun to revisit this? Because you and I are in a parallel track. We both we have a lot of input. We're both transitioning. And so today we're talking September. So I would posit that by the spring, we're going to be very different. And maybe we could revisit this at least in an email. I'm very open to that. I'll give you an honest report. If it didn't work, you'll be the first to know.
Right. And if it did work, we'll do it in Spanish.
Por supuesto.
You know, it comes natural to me, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah, actually, that would be fine. I didn't get the idea that you wanted to do this in Spanish, and it would be a real struggle. It would be very inarticulate. But in 6 months, was he like?
Yeah, I just thought about it on the spot. So it wasn't my idea beforehand. So, but yeah.
No, we could do that. We can do that. And, I'm not going to stress over it. I'm just going to.
I know. I've got that feeling already.
I'm going to continue. It's a real dynamic, interesting problem. That is, I was born a crying child. I've been impatient all my life, and yet I've disciplined myself to relax. That comes with the little gray hairs, you just relax. Don't worry about it.
Right.
Well, it's been an honor. I am so grateful that you reached out to me and, my humble little channel, and you said, hey, we need to talk. and what a great honor it was.
I'm happy you see it that way. And yeah, just anyone who's interested in languages and interested in honestly talking about it like yourself, it's just a pleasure. Yeah.
Well, I'll be watching your channel, and I don't know if I'll ever watch my interview. I don't take a lot of pleasure watching my own videos, except that it's necessary to turn out a good product.
Right.
But
yeah, like things you can improve on and things like that.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll be in touch. And thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you. Good day.
Of course. Thanks so much for watching this interview. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful for you. And if you want to know more about language learning, language acquisition, what's the best way to learn a language, ideas for language learning, the best resources at different levels, here you can find the whole playlist with all the interviews I've done so far with different researchers, teachers, polyglots, and so on. And finally, right here, you smash this guy right in the face to subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.